All right, let's do the mic check. Make sure it's working properly. All right, I think it's working all right. Hey, Des, I'm glad you didn't miss stream. I'm sorry for starting late. I uh, had to update my the driver on my what's it called graphics card. Would not the stream would not start unless I updated the graphics card. But the software starts, it just doesn't let you know until you start streaming that it can't stream. It's very frustrating. Alrighty. Um, okay, everything I think is working properly now. And yeah, all right. Alrighty. So I'm gonna be working on this commission. Okay, at least that's the plan. Can't believe it's been a week since I streamed. Feels like so long. How have you been, Des? Obviously, I had uh, the market thing I went to. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I figure I'll wait till hopefully some more people show up and I can talk about it for a bit. But yeah, otherwise, I know that a lot has been going on with me. I've been just busy. I was busy with that, and then I was kind of recovering from doing that. It is exhausting, I will say that. The whole thing was very exhausting. But yeah, other than that, um, it's been a little, things have been a little slow. Took a day to recover and then dealt with some things, other unrelated. I mean, my wall, I haven't even put all my artwork back up yet. I wish I could say that that's what is left after sold out. That is not the case. It's just I haven't had the time to put everything back in place. Yeah, it's interesting. I will say this, my setup, I'm really happy with my setup. I think it's a very easy, convenient setup, and that's, that's good, obviously. I think that makes a huge difference. But just being there, like, at the for that many hours, um, you know, that alone is enough to be exhausting, but then also trying to talk to people, I mean, I don't mind talking to people, but you it's, on Saturday, it was, like, from 10 AM, the thing opened, which I was there before 10 AM, obviously, to set up, so 10 AM to, 9 PM. Yeah. Does says people? Yuck. Yeah, no, I met a lot of it was nice. It was really nice to talk to people, and I met a lot of really nice people. I got a lot of really good feedback, you know so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good that came out of it. We'll see you know, where things develop and so on. Sorry, I'm cleaning my palette. I forgot I needed to do that. I did have like just two particular interactions that were like particularly funny to me. Um, because the people were kind of rude, but it's funny because it really did not bother me. It's just it stood out so much because they were actually like rude. That was literally like the only two people like what I would consider actually rude. Some people don't respond or like they're just kind of whatever, but it's to be expected. Actually, I take that back. There was one other aspect that people were a little rude, which was just annoying. Is people kept walking through my booth area to cut the corner. Instead of like walking around, they would cut through just to like cut the corner of the tent area, and I'm like, you know, you don't. It's not that big of a walk. Like, just go around. I don't understand why like you have to use this corner to cut here. Oh, whatever. Very minor. Very, very minor. Gonna oil out now. Everything here is definitely dry. No question about that. Yeah, the funny one was there's someone showed up with their kid, and she um I don't know how old she was. I'm guessing like young teens. I'm not really good at estimating. I have no idea. Um, and she was looking at my art, and I guess she's an artist as well. And I was like, oh, that's great. She's like, yeah, I could do these too if I had the time in reference to my paintings. And I was like, ah, well, that's fantastic for you. And just like, I have no idea. Maybe she can. I have no clue. Like maybe she's some prodigy. I have no idea, you know. But it was just funny. I was just like, okay, cool. And then she kind of walked away. I think she might have been a little on the spectrum just based off of like mannerisms and everything. uh, that says, "Oh, it's too bad you don't have the time to fulfill your dreams." Hey, I mean, whatever. Like I said, it was just funny, to me that I was like, okay, that's like I said, that was just a funny one. I was just like, all right, whatever. And then the other one that was funny was some guy was looking um, at my paintings, and I was selling my daily what's it called? My oh, wait a second. That says, yeah, it was a spectrum person. They probably could do it if they put their mind to it. I mean, probably. I don't know. Maybe eventually. Like it's the type of thing where that I'm sure that eventually they could do it if they wanted to, right? Because I think anyone can if you take the time and effort to, develop the skills. But yeah, maybe they do that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know them, so I have no clue. But yeah, the other guy, he was I don't know, um, Hispanic. The only reason I mentioned that is because his English was not the greatest, so our communication was very stilted. Um, and he was looking at my daily paintings, asking me how much for the daily paintings that I had done. And I told him 250 because I was selling them for 250. He's like, and his reaction was like, "Oh man, that's as much as I make in a day." And I was like, "Yeah, that's as much as I'd like to make in a day too." That's why they're charged, they're priced at that because it's daily paintings. And that's what I would like to make. So it's just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. But like I said, overall, the responses and reactions and everything were really great. That was just like, you know, two outliers, and I do not take offense to any of it. I'm just gonna start drawing in some of the stuff right now, just to get started here. I've tried to step away from using this to draw in things, but it's been so long since I even touched this painting. I feel like I just need to kind of take some time to reassess things, and this is a great way for me to just do that. So how have you been, Des? How's the preparations for the show coming along? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, you know how it is, no pressure. So right now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to define the blocks of the hair so that I can add more structure to it as I go through this. Um, if you if anyone ever reads books on how to draw and illustrate, hair or people in general, usually one of the things that they, recommend is to kind of group and chunk the hair together. You don't want to draw the individual strands. You want to create volume, and then you can put in strands if you want, but there's really not a need for it, or at least all of them, I should say. That says I'm stressed. I realized today we don't have a poster for welcoming people. We had one last year. We need to remake it. And there's been no media touches. And last year we had an interview at a government person came to do a photo essay about the program. We've had no contact this year. Oh, that sucks. I mean, I'm assuming you'd have to reach out to them. So I don't know if you did that last year, but maybe you have to uh, proactively do it. I don't know. Easier said than done. I recognize that. You know, I am not good at like necessarily putting on events. I'm just talking in generalizations. Let's see. It's a lack of initiative on the part of the charity people. The woman who ran it, who ran this last year was a kick-ass woman who had a ton of contacts. Yeah, that that track, unfortunately. Let's see here. Not bad. All right. Okay. Sometimes I am not the most precise person in the world when it comes to like the drawing aspect of things. Like I do sometimes wish I was better at being more accurate with my drawings. However, I suspect that the reason I'm sometimes not is or the reason, not just like not when I say sometimes, it's just as a generalization, is because I don't find that part as interesting, and so I probably don't practice it as much, which is often the case with things we don't find all that interesting. It says, and she was on top of everything. The woman from last year, and my sister took care of a lot. This year, it's up to me, and I don't have direct contact with the charity people. Oh, that's not good. Oh, and I asked her for photos of her pieces, and she asked me to do them. So, that's not great. I'm sorry, Des. I hope it works out regardless, you know. But that is tough. What's going on here? 1 second. Oh, okay. It'll work out. You just have to get things done. Gotta get the printing done next week. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that, you know? Alrighty. Alright, right. A lot of the features here are very close, they're just slightly off. Except for this eye. Well, it's still slightly off, but slightly more than everything else, I'd say. Let's see here. Alright. Yeah, this eye needs a little adjustment, but not horribly, just a bit. I always have to remind myself, I'm not trying to do a copy, trying to make a good painting, not try and recreate the photo reference. It'd be tough sometimes to get, or, keep that in mind because I always want to be accurate, but sometimes that doesn't add anything to it. Actually, it's so funny because some of my favorite artists aren't always really that accurate, but it don't really matter. And if you go by like portrait artist of the year, accuracy and likeness half the time isn't even important at all. I'm kidding a little bit, but they do sometimes pick ones where I'm just like, it's supposed to look like them, right? Like I thought it's a portrait of the person, and yet you guys went with the one that doesn't look like the person. Bold strategy, you know. All right, let's see here. A little hard to see. Okay. Alrighty. Unfortunately, I was dealing with all the technical stuff and I didn't get the opportunity to feed the animals. So I have to take a break to feed said animals. Um, I am going to run an ad on Twitch because might as well, so we don't get pre-rolls. But yeah, I'm gonna have to do this. I will be right back. All right. Sorry that took longer than I'd hoped. I have to be very um, deliberate when I feed the animals. They like I have to stand there and watch them to make sure that they don't eat each other's food and stuff like that. But yeah, sorry about that. And I am back. Get started on this. Alrighty. Let's see where we're at here. Now that I've placed everything, need to see what it actually looks like. I think my volume's a little too loud. There we go. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to assess which paint I need to put out. So just the blue. One thing I hate about buying art supplies online, I mean, there's obviously conveniences to it for sure. And the obvious one is like you can't try anything out or feel it or look at it in person, you know, in color reproduction on screens and all that. Obviously, not the same thing. But those things aside, those are very common. Like that's the kind of expected issues with it. The the other issue I have is that like I remember when I need something, I'm like, oh, I need, like I need to buy some paints or I need, certain colors or whatever. And then I'll be like, oh, I also need, I don't know, gesso, and then I need this, and then I need that. And I don't always need it at the same time or in the same urgency, but you don't want to order multiple times. So you're trying to like group it all together. And then end up forgetting about the things I actually need. And then or I wait too long and I'm, running out of things and so on. And it just becomes a mess. It's kind of what ends up happening half the time. Am I No, okay, I'm not muted. I was worried for a second I was muted. Okay, just double checking. I have a new shortcut button set up to mute and unmute. I was worried I accidentally clicked it or something. Des says I have distractions off and on. No worries, Des. It's all good. Actually, before I start cleaning, I should put out a little bit more oleo gel. I do want to talk about the what's it called? The event a bit, but I have like there are definitely different elements about it that I want to talk about. Like there's how it went overall, and then there's other aspects. Um, in the interest of trying not to repeat myself too many times, um, I'm going to talk about some of the more um, like esoteric sides of things a little bit because I feel like some other, people will come in and ask how it went, and I'll talk a bit more about the like sales specifically, you know. But um, as far as like other elements of it are concerned, it was really interesting because um, hearing the feedback that people gave me, what they thought of things, the way they viewed things was really interesting because it's really a great reminder that the way you view your own art and the way that other people interpret it aren't always the same. And I've had this experience before as well with even with other artists. I've gotten feedback, uh, got feedback from Nicholas Uribe back a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago, and he referred to me as a bold artist with like you know uh, like bold brush marks and bold colors and all this other stuff, and I was like, huh, I wouldn't quite have thought of myself in that manner. So it's interesting how different people perceive you and your artwork. And it's worth like I think maybe not being overly attached to how you perceive yourself and also to how like others perceive you in that regard specifically, especially since it's one of those things that definitely is not in your control in any way. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and just the way that like people interpret things. I might have intended this like a particular painting to be more tender or soft, and other people will perceive it as, you know, forceful or something. Like, I'm not thinking of particular examples at the moment, just generalization. I thought that was really interesting. And also, like, which painting is like my favorite, or, their favorite, or whatever, for like the reasons are just so vastly different. And yeah, it's just worth like keeping those things in mind, that how people perceive your stuff and how you experience it are wildly different. You know, and there was another thing. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, another thing that I really appreciated was, I got a ton of positive feedback from people who really appreciated my art. Unfortunately, not all of that appreciation, like, we'll phrase it this way: the amount of appreciation uh, to sales were drastically different. So uh, that is something to keep in mind, that those two aren't uh, like, I'd say they're correlated for sure, but you know they don't always it's not a one to one for sure. So for all the artists out there, just keep that in mind, and I don't know, be patient, or don't equate lack of sales to quality necessarily, because those two things aren't always connected. Which I know is hard sometimes, and I get that, but yeah. Hey, Donley, welcome. Good to see you. How are you doing? Donley, for those who don't know Donley is a streamer. He streams on Twitch. Um, he does digital art and video games sometimes. He's a lot of fun. His streams are a lot of fun. I highly recommend checking him out. Um, and Don Leo, his user tag. You can find him on Twitch. I will share a link at some point, as when I can take a when I take a break. But yeah, how you doing? Donley, I have to say, and you don't have to respond, but your lack of response made me check my microphone settings a couple times just to make sure that I wasn't muted by accident. Donley says, would have been here sooner, but I guess the alert on YouTube doesn't let you know if a live stream is live unless you refresh. Probably it's stupid thing. Yeah, tons of issues with all that stuff. Sometimes it's very frustrating. I also was late to start because I suddenly couldn't stream. But the software, OBS was like, "Oh yeah, you have an encoding issue." All of a sudden, my drivers aren't working properly anymore. I was like, "Oh, that's great timing." Um, cool. Donnelly says, "Oh well, just a long response and trying to make sure what I typed made sense." Oh, no worries. It happens. Like I said, I wasn't giving you a hard time. I was just saying like it was just one of those moments where I'm like, wait, am I muted by accident? Because I have been muted by accident many, many times, so it happens. Sandra says, I'm here just lurking a little bit. I've been listening though, so I didn't miss any stories. Oh, welcome, Sandra. Glad you're here lurking. And Sandra says, hope everyone is well. Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. So yeah, I can talk a bit about the hold on a second. Donnelly says, Yay, encoding issues. Yeah, there's always little things that come up every so often to mess up your ability to stream." Yeah, it happens so often, and it's really frustrating too because like the software doesn't tell you until it's like too late. It's like my stream is set for a certain time, so I have the software up beforehand, and I go to click, start around like a couple minutes early, and then it notifies me, and then I'm like, "Oh, okay. Even though you were on this whole time, there's no diagnostic checks, you just gotta kinda wing it now and hope that I can update my driver in time, blah, blah, blah," kinda thing. It's like, "Ah, come on." Don Lee says, "Painting is looking great." Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so, oh, yeah, so the art fair, went well. It was, I would say it was a good event. I enjoyed it, and, like I was saying earlier, I definitely got a ton of compliments on my paintings, which is always nice. Um, I didn't get a ton of sales. I did have sales, but not a ton. Surprisingly, the Dresden, roly-poly, painting didn't sell yet, um, which I was shocked. The other Dresden painting actually sold, but that one didn't yet. I'm sure it will sell at some point, but yeah. And then, the, um, the other thing I was gonna say is that the event, I think, was like, how can I phrase this? It was more of a family event than I'd say I probably realized, because they branded it as an art fair, but it was really, um and it was an art fair, but it was very, very family friendly, which, like, high-end art fairs probably aren't as, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, family oriented by design, right? But other than that, it was really good. And I'm not opposed to like it being a family thing. It's just it draws a different type of crowd and a different focus is really what I'm kind of talking about. Des says, uh, it didn't, and Roly Poly is my favorite, I think. Yeah, it's a cute one. I really like that one. Uh, Donley says, "Ooh, I'd be interested in seeing which sold." The painting of Dresden, sitting by the window, I think it comes up in my thing. If it doesn't, I'll, I'll put I'll, post it or something. But yeah, there's a painting of Dresden just sitting by the window, which, used to be behind me. I haven't put up, all of my paintings yet. I wish I could say that this is what's left from sales, but that is not the case. I have most of my paintings still left. Like I said, I did have sales, but not a ton of sales. I just haven't had the time to put them back on the shelves. As always, star power making sales, can't blame them. Yeah, yeah. Um, and one of the small flower paintings that I did, leading up to the event also sold, so that was fun. That was nice. But yeah, uh, like I said, it definitely more family oriented, and depending on who you were, depending on the sellers, like, there was a lot of sellers who said it was a very slow year, and then there was a couple of sellers who were selling out like crazy. So it does depend a little on who, but there was a lot of other things there than just like paintings, right? Like there was a ton of other painters there, but there was also a lot of you know, there was jewelry. There was the person next to me did pottery. There was someone who did like these plushy, like stuffed animals type of thing, like hand knitted ones that were really cute, but whatever. Just different. They're very cute, but just very different vibe. Let's see. The flowers you shot reference here, or the earlier ones? Cassandra, good question. I don't remember. I'll check later. I don't remember. Yeah. I had the experience where a friend of mine stopped by, and I was trying to tell him which paintings sold, and how things were going. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember like half the things that sold because my brain was just like so exhausted. Um, but yeah, it was extremely exhausting. That for sure. I am not a morning person, and we started at 9 a.m. No, it opened at 10 a.m., but I had to be there earlier, you know. Yeah, I was really out of it in the mornings. But, otherwise it wasn't that bad. I will say my setup is really easy, and anyone who's gonna do any of these craft fair things, like, or art markets, one thing I can definitely recommend is make the setup as easy as you can, because I used to help Michelle with her craft fairs, and her stuff's very different than mine. She has four-letter word cards, and the products that she has and everything is very, very different. So the setup and of course, her aesthetic and everything vastly different. Uh, Her setup is way, way, way more complicated, and it takes so much more work to set up and tear down. It's unbelievably different, and so if I can say, having experienced both, if you're ever going to do this, try to make it as simple and easy as you possibly can on yourself. Do not do not go overboard with that stuff. That's all I can say about that. For sure. Absolutely. Like, I don't think it's worth it. I can also say that my current setup, which I guess I can share later on Discord, is um I wouldn't say it's the best, but if I had to like balance out, the setup versus the price of it, I would say it's a good balance between the two, because I used a regular, like, sun tarp type of thing, and it doesn't look as nice as the tarps that are designed for hanging things off of it, but the price difference is drastically different. So I would say if you know you're going to do a lot of events like this, definitely, and you sell, definitely invest in the nicer tarps for the tents. However, if you're just getting started, don't, go the cheap route probably. At least in that's where my brain goes. And but yeah, if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask. I didn't bring prints, but I did sell some prints, which was kind of funny because someone who was uh, who was also a vendor there ended up wanting some prints. So we printed them off and brought them for her specifically. The issue I have with prints is that I can't afford to pre-print, all my paintings. Um, it's really the big issue I have with prints. So I do them on demand, and yeah, you know, but that does mean I can't bring like prints of everything. I do think I probably would have sold more prints if I had brought more of them with me. Um, but yeah, I just can't can't justify the price. I still have prints left over from when I used to do comic conventions. They're just sitting in my closet doing nothing. So yeah. Oh, actually, I do have something I can share. I did get a lot of questions about um, commissions, and I was planning on sharing this on Instagram today, but I suck at social media, so I didn't do it. However, let me share it here in chat and, um, share it in chat, and then I'll hopefully post about it later tomorrow or something. That I officially have a commission page on my website. Um, oh, I messed it up. Hold on a second. Yep, I messed it up. That's great. Well, I'm glad I caught it now. Oh, jeez. All right. Did I have business card or something you were able to give interested peoples? Yes, I did. Thanks for asking. I'll share that too. I one second. Okay, here we go. This is the right page. That was awkward. So I have a commissions page now finally. So yeah. All right. And then one second. Um, how do how do I am really trying. Is it this? No. Donley, I am trying to get your what's it called to shout you out, but I'm doing a bad job of it. I don't know why it is giving me such a hard time. Why won't clicking on your name and clicking on nothing? Oh, there we go. Finally. Okay, that was annoying. For anyone who doesn't know Don Lee, it's not him that's annoying, it's Twitch. But here we go. Here's his Twitch. You can check him out there. All right. Yeah. So yeah, I can actually share my business cards here with you all, if you want to see them. Uh, you might recognize the painting that is on my business cards. Hold on. So yeah, this is my business card. It's a little distorted because of my warping that I do for the angle, but yeah, this is my business card. And then on the back, um, I have my contact info, and I have um, a QR code. You guys don't need to see this information because it's online already. You know, but I have a QR code so people can also get get all that information if they want. But yeah, actually went through a lot more of them than I thought I would. It looks like your QR code is squished. Does it still read? So you this camera is or this camera is distorted because of the angle of the camera. So I correct the distortion, but it's only corrected for this, this what's it called? For the painting. It's not corrected otherwise. It does still read. And you can see it here. It's not squished, right? It won't focus, but it's not squished. It's small, but it does read. I checked it. Yeah, QR codes are. Oh, that reminds me. I need to. So if you're familiar with how people have like what's it called? Like link tree links in their bio and stuff like that. Instead of using that, I have a link that goes to my website, but to a links page on my website. Um, I don't know if that's better or not, but I've heard someone claim that that was better because they're already on your website. I don't know if that's actually true, but I still do it mostly because I don't know what the heck, like what's the advantage of using Linktree? I don't know, but I do need to update the link and add the commissions page to that. I gotta remind myself later to do that. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. That's I think most of what I kind of have to say. Uh, you know, um, oh no, that's not everything I have to say. I take that back. I did have a a local gallery come by, um, and I don't know, they liked my stuff. They were very, very positive about a lot of my stuff and wanted me to enter into any of their, open calls, but also, um, I don't know, we'll see. I don't have a great, like, "Oh, this is gonna happen from that." We'll see. Um, but, there was definitely some interest there, so that's good. And then also a ton of people were interested in commissions. So hopefully they're still interested because I know how it, I know how it happens. They say they're interested and they are, and then, they sit on it and eventually, talk themselves out of it or something. I don't know, which I understand. You know, I shop that way too sometimes, so I get it. But I I will say that is something next time I do one of these things. If commissions are something you're going to offer, I would say have the sign up sheet and take pre-sales on the spot. I have had someone reach out to me already, so there are definitely some interest. And a lot of times people are not ready to buy to pre-sell commissions on the spot regardless because they need to think it over and decide if they act, who they want or what they want. Like some people will have an instant yes, but a lot of people need some time to actually think about it because it's like, oh, I want this for this person, but oh, there's this, birthday or that or whatever it is. They're not like 100% on it right away. But still, having a sign up sheet and pre-sales probably would have been a smart thing to do. So next time, but I'm also trying to share like my experience so that you all can kind of skip the next time and you know leapfrog kind of if you ever do something like this. So her hair is very annoying. Um, like I would call it like dirty blonde, like brown hair with blonde in it, or I don't know exactly. Um, it's very annoying because a lot of it just kind of becomes um, very close to her skin tone, which I don't love for painting purposes. Uh, so what I'm trying to do is add a little bit more color into the transition areas, and then I can remove a little color from the other areas. But yeah, some color hair in different lightings can be difficult sometimes. Black hair can also be very difficult in the right lighting, so it's not this or that, just in this in this reference rather, it can be difficult. Yeah, I don't know if, who was well, I know Don Lee wasn't here. I don't know about Cassandra and if there's anyone else lurking, but, if you missed the beginning when I was talking about it, I talked about, uh, there was, everyone was really nice, all like, well, 99% of the people were really nice, about, like, looking at the art or, no one was particularly rude or anything like that. So I mentioned that just for if there are people who want to do this and are a little, a little worried about like how people will respond to the art. Yeah, people were very very nice overall, and I don't think that was unique to me at all. Um, generally people are not confrontational, so you know that I don't think people should worry about. Um, So yeah, but there was 2 people who were a little rude, and I didn't take it personally, did not affect me in the slightest. It was more funny than anything else to me. Uh, One was a little girl, uh, with her, I'm assuming mom or something. I think she was on the spectrum. She was like, I'm gonna say like early teens, like 12 or 13, something like that. I don't know. I'm not a good judge of age. In like those ages, I have no clue. Um, and she was like looking at my paintings, and she's like, so I asked her if she's an artist because you can kind of catch, you can kind of tell when they're artists a lot of times. She's like, yeah, I'm an artist. She looks at my paintings. She's like, I could do these if I had the time. It's just like, all right, cool, that's great. Um, and then they just kind of left, Like I said, I think she was a little on the spectrum, just based off of her mannerisms and stuff, but yeah, it was funny. Thanks for catching the spammer, Donnelly. But yeah, I didn't take it personally at all, uh, n I really just laughed about it and thought it was funny. I think you do this too, but, situations like her hair, I like to digitally edit my reference to help me bring the most out of an image I'll be illustrating. Yeah, I mean, I do I used to do that a lot more. I definitely edit things a bit in the computer. Sometimes you have to edit colors, push and pull, some elements of that. Having said that, I don't do it as much as I used to. And I try to do a lot more of it with paint. Um, but uh, it just depends on the painting and on the image, honestly. But yeah, hers. One of the problems is there's not the highest quality image either. So there isn't a ton of there's only so much editing I can do. And then yeah, and also actually very few. Only one person balked at my pricing at all. So that is also, um, I would say encouraging, but it's also one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's encouraging, but at the same time, there weren't as many sales. So, uh, you know, I don't know if I don't know exactly how to read that. Um, but it's tough knowing when you're pricing your stuff, how well you're pricing your stuff, right? like, in theory, if you price it low enough that you sell out of everything, then you know to raise your prices. However, people are really weird, and sometimes if you price your stuff too low, um, people won't value it, because it's cheap, which I is a very funny quirk that we have, that people have, because it's like, isn't that a good thing if you can save money and still get the thing you want? But it makes people, like, not value your stuff. So knowing exactly how to price your work is definitely a challenging aspect of selling art. I'm kind of putting down a lot more warm colors for her hair, and I'm planning on going over a lot of this with lighter yellow, but I want some of that warmth to come through, because that's the thing with hair. The strands, you want to have, like, you know, layered color in it. That helps give the illusion of the strands of hair. Another thing I will say is, um, for events like this, if it's not a what I will call, like, a more fine art event, um, I do think that having more, like, pop culture related stuff might sell better. I don't have a ton, and actually none of my pop culture related stuff actually sold. But if that was more in line with what I did, I think I would have had more sales. There was another artist there who does, like, pop culture related paintings and comic book stuff and movie stuff, and I think he probably sold a bit more, although I didn't get a chance to ask him. But he does it more often, so I'm assuming he probably had more sales. Um, so it's always a challenging thing though, because I don't I like I like drawing or painting pop culture stuff, that I like. So in that regards, it's fine. However, I don't I don't want to paint paintings just to sell paintings. I don't want selling the paintings to dictate my choices of what to paint as much. I mean, I did do some flower paintings, so it's not 100%, but I don't mind also stretching, flowers. Surprisingly difficult, which I've said before, and they can definitely challenging. So uh, don't mind making that effort and trying that, but I don't want it to become like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to start doing a ton of pinups so that I sell more paintings. Cassandra says, "You and your integrity and personal happiness, har har." Yeah, oh, something like that. Yes, you know, that's kind of where it's at. I mean, it's funny because I I really, even pinups, right? Like, I don't mind pinups. I like pinups. One of my there's like two pinup artists that I like a lot. Gil Elvgren, he's a really good oil painter. His stuff's a little I mean, he did it back in the day, so it's old-fashioned, so it's not exactly like, you know, I don't know, but it's really good painting, and he handles fabric so well. The way he handles, like, sheer fabric while not putting in a lot of detail is just fantastic. And then there's, what's her name? I think it's Olivia something, or maybe I'm getting her name confused. I'm always so bad with names. Um, but yeah, there's definitely like I'm not opposed to those, but clearly it's not well, like I'm not constantly trying to paint pinups all the time, or and that was just an example, whatever it would be. Pet portraits is another one. People definitely want pet portraits and stuff like that. So, um, you know, I'll take commissions for that, but, you know, and I'm not gonna start I'm not gonna turn all my paintings like from now on, I'll just paint animals just so that I can get more commissions to do pets. Not where I'm gonna go with things. Having said that, I do still need to do a portrait of Wizard. He's still on the list of his portrait is definitely missing. Yeah, pet portraits definitely like people. A lot of people were curious about commissions for pets. That was one of the bigger questions. And I know a few artists who basically make their living from doing just that. So, if that's what you like to do, you're in luck. But yeah, if anyone has any other questions, or you're welcome to ask. But I'm trying to think of anything else I have to really say about the event. Um, and I don't know that I do at the moment. Um, I am very behind on videos, putting out videos. I know that. So uh, sorry about that, everybody. And I'm probably going to be pretty behind on that in general for a little while, because starting next week, my schedule is going to change quite a bit. Hopefully, I can keep my streams as planned. Um, but yeah, my schedule's changing quite a bit next week, um, moving forward, kind of thing. So we'll see. Um, like I said, I still want to keep putting out videos. I just my pace is. I know I'm really behind already, and I might still struggle to get videos out for a while. Sandra says, I really wish getting commissioned was easier on me mentally. I really struggle every time. You mean accepting commissions is hard on you, or you mean ordering commissions? I'm assuming you mean getting them, because that makes more sense to me. Um, it is challenging. If you look at my commission page, for anyone who hasn't had a chance yet, I do have something that I call the wild card commission, um, and that is partially because of how challenging commissions can accepting commissions can be. And so the wild card commission is priced a bit lower than we'll call it the regular commissions. And the idea is that um, the person who is, you know, um, commissioning me gets a lot less control over the commission. And to me, that makes sense because it's like, why would you commission an artist and then try and micromanage them, or try and have too much input in their art? Um, but that is the way some people are. Uh, so the wild card commission is meant to be more hands off and therefore a little cheaper to make it a bit easier for people to order and also to just, you know, uh, take it on chance or take it on, trust in my artistic vision of things to make it look good. You know, that says I don't want to take on commissions. I understand that. Kendra says the moment I have to please someone, I freeze up and have to force myself through. Yeah, it is. It is. It can be challenging. Absolutely. Like I said, that's why I have the wild card commission, and even and having said that, even my regular commissions, people can, you know, um, give me notes and feedback, but I'm not handling it like my illustration commissions. You get a lot less revisions and notes and all of that because this isn't this isn't illustrations. This is oil painting. If you want a painting done by me that looks like my type of painting, then you commission me to do a painting, and because you like my painting, and then you should hope to get a painting that is done by me that looks like a painting done by me. So I don't I don't see the point in offering too much, revisions and notes and this. It's like, yeah, why would you even want that? I know if I commissioned an artist, I wouldn't want that, right? I would want them to do what they want to do with the thing. And don't get me wrong, you can request, if you want a family member, obviously you're gonna we're gonna do a commission of the family member or pet or whatever it is. But you know, I, I just don't get it. It's like going to a tattoo artist, and giving them a ton of like, I don't know, a ton of notes on the designs and stuff. You know, if you're seeking out the artist, like follow, let them do their thing. I don't know. I just, yeah, that's just my kind of feeling on it. But it is challenging, and there's also an element of it, for me at least, where it's like, you know, if I'm doing something for someone else, there's definitely a part of it that doesn't feel as much. I don't feel as connected to it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel as much like my own personal artwork, and that is something that is challenging to deal with. It does take a lot of the enjoyment out of the process. Or I should say it can. It kind of depends on the circumstance. But I do get it. It can be intimidating for sure. Unfortunately, I think commissions are often a big portion of how uh, some artists, make a living. There's a there's a story of an artist. I'm trying to remember his name. He was a famous photographer, and the story supposedly goes that he he had a very hard time taking on work, but he was like a renowned photographer, and his friends got him a job to do a like a it was like a big job to do a coffee campaign for some one of the for a coffee brand, and the only stipulation that the coffee brand had was that coffee or coffee beans had to be involved in some manner in the photo, right? Like, that was it. That was the stipulation. They were otherwise just hands off, do whatever you want. That was the stipulation, and the story goes that the artist would just would freeze up and could not finish the campaign and do the campaign. So, yeah, I totally get it. Some people really struggle with that. Sandra says, "Too real?" Yeah. Yeah. I have I'm somewhere in between. I have more experience, I have well, more experience. I don't know. Depends on who I'm talking to. I have experience doing commissions. I've done, illustration commissions and comic books and covers and, stuff like that. So I have experience doing it. Um, that work can still be very frustrating, and challenging for sure. It's not, I'm not gonna say that it's not, um, but I do have some experience with it. Alright. There's definitely more work to do on the hair, but I'm gonna leave the hair alone for a little bit, take a break, and move on. I, uh, I try to follow the thing where, like, you bring everything to a finish kind of simultaneously, so I'm gonna try and pull that off. To a degree, obviously, it's impossible. Like I always say, it's impossible 100%, but, the thing I sometimes get, um, frustrated with commissions is when I do something and then, I get notes about, "Oh, well, we like what you did, but we want you to change this or that or this or that." And to be clear, I've worked in TV animation. It's not, you get notes like that all the time. When I'm working as a job, those notes don't bother me in the slightest. I get notes and it's like, change this, change that, do that, like, cool. That's what my director wants. That's what I'll do. I'm here to do a job, right? I very clearly, like, this is my job. I am doing my job. They want those changes. I will make said changes. But when it comes to a more personal artwork, that's when those notes start to be annoying or frustrating or just more bothersome, I think. Because it's like, yeah, okay, that's nice that you think that, you know, but I'm the artist, it's my art, I'm doing it this way. Now, when you're doing a commission, it falls into this weird category of like, oh, well, I want to say that, but I'm also doing a commission, so it's also kind of a job, And that's where I run into some issues with commissions. Sandra said, "My dad had a boss who always had a change, no matter what. So he started planning stuff for his boss to remove. It worked." Oh, illustrators have been doing that for years. That is a very common thing that a lot of illustrators will do. Like it is known that like a lot of times directors and stuff like that they will always have a note of some kind because they some of them feel like they have to justify their job. So if they don't give any notes, who needs them, right? So they have to put it in put in input. So yeah, our illustrators, that's a very common thing where they'll do that. Absolutely. But it's funny that your dad also, did that and also I bet he probably has some fun stories about the ones that he used to put in on purpose, right? Because you can have a good time with that for sure. Only thing you need to be careful about that is my art teacher had a horror story where he did that. He used to do that, and it's not when he would put in mistakes, but it's when he would give the client like options, and the idea was he would give the client like multiple options, and with the idea that like they will choose the one that he wants. So he made the other ones worse, but then they would end up going with the worse ones. So you got to be careful with that. Hey Milo, welcome. How are you doing today? Let's see. Milo says, beautiful painting, Leon. I put out an ad for an open commissions in September, and my mom was my only client. I mean, yeah, that happens, and it's tough, but it's worth remembering that when your family and friends commission you, let me put it this way. This is where my mind goes to. A lot of times, it's one of those things where it can feel, at least to me, and I've heard this from other artists, invalidating in a way because it's like, it's like getting a compliment from your parent. But having said that, it makes sense that that your mom, your family, your friends are going to be the first ones to support you and you know, uh, order from you because they've seen your stuff this whole time, so they have a way better understanding of it too. But yeah, it can be challenging. I'm going to step out off screen for a second. I think one of my cats just threw up their dinner. So I'm going to keep talking. I have my microphone with me, but I'm going to see if I can just check real quick and see. Um, 'cause I heard a sound, and it's a distinct sound, but I don't see any of the cats, or I see the cats, they're sleeping, so I guess not. But yeah, it's tough. But now, well, as your channel grows, Milo, I'm sure you'll get more, commissions. You know, you've been putting out videos a lot. I'm sure it'll translate to something at some point. I was saying, I might be slowing I didn't put out any videos in September, which is just frustrating, but, my overall output is gonna slow down a bit. I, I got a job that I'm gonna be starting next week. We'll see how long that lasts, but that is going to seriously disrupt my daily, like, my routines up until now, so, we'll see how much it affects my video output. I'm gonna try and keep my streaming schedule, but, we'll see how that goes as well. Milo, something you could do for your channel is, you could do, eventually, you could charge for this, but for free, you could probably ask people to give input on, like, what you should draw next, like, which characters, and you can give, you can give, like, options. You could do a poll, kinda thing. Um, if you have enough viewers and enough engagement, that might, the people who vote on it might end up wanting to buy it, so you never know. By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Milo Arts of the Round Table, he's an artist and has a YouTube channel here, um, and, been doing gouache lately. Have you been liking the gouache? Have you tried your I've been out of it this last weekend. I was completely checked out. Have you gotten into your, other gouache other than the Himi, stuff? When I got into gouache, I bought a CMYK, mixing set from Holbein, and, Holbein was really good. I don't know that I'd recommend the mixing set necessarily because is, um the cyan has white added to it, and I feel like I would prefer to get phthalo blue without the white added to it. Other than that, though, it's a good set. Milo says, "That would be cool. I will absolutely consider." Yeah. Like I said, if it definitely is something that, like, once you have enough engagement, that might be something that would be nice. And what's nice too is that you get to dictate if you do it by poll, you get to dictate, like, you can put options that you wanna paint, or draw, right? So you get a chance, you get control over it, but you get engagement that way. Cassandra says, "I have to head out, but have a lovely night." Okay, Cassandra, you too. Have a good night. Eventually, when you do have um, enough viewers, you could, you could even charge a small amount for people to just to dictate, like, what you paint or draw. Um, but, that's also, you don't have to, that's not something that, like, you have to go that route. You can A lot of people do do it by like as a way for fans to be able to contribute and community build and so on. Milo says, no, not yet. I'm looking forward to the switching of gouache. I'm a bit OCD and finishing the Hemis is really driving me right now. Oh, that's good that it's driving you, right? Like it's good to um, sometimes artists struggle with that aspect of things. So having something to push you is a great thing. That's fantastic. That was always something I didn't never clicked with me in the Hemis was like that was my as soon as I saw them, my first thought was, what about when they dry? Like, or how do you stop them from drying out? That was my first question. I didn't get it. Like, what's it called? The pan gouaches I understand because they're dry and then you wet them. I get that. However, I have issues with dry pan gouache. I understand dry gouache for watercolors, or I understand dry pans for watercolor, but I do not understand it for gouache because when I re-wet my gouache, it's never as opaque or you know like the coverage just isn't there. It loses so much of it. I never understood why anyone would do uh, dry pan wash. Tube wash makes sense to me, right? But yeah. Do you have your next wash set already ready? I think you said something about Arteza, if I remember correctly. I've never used Arteza. Wait, I've used Arteza acrylic, but I wouldn't really qualify it. I used it very much like um, what's the word I'm looking for? Craft stuff. Like I was just painting in, like it was, yeah, it wasn't like painting for real. I was just coloring something. Milo says it became a compulsive routine to spritz with water and mix the paints to say juicy. I'm going with the Arteza next. The quality jump is immediate. Oh, really? Okay, that's good. That's good. Um, what was I going to say? I will. So I didn't know this was a thing, and I don't think you'll have a problem with it. But um, there's a artist on YouTube. I don't remember her name right now. Um, she does videos about painting and all of that. And one of her things is she did a bunch of videos about travel gouache and all that stuff. Um, Apparently, one of the things you have to keep an eye out when you're like re-wetting, your gouache and traveling and all that stuff is uh, mold buildup. And I'll be honest, never really occurred to me until I saw her videos, and then I was like, huh, I guess, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The splinter painting I did was with the Arteza. Nice. I will say I have used a Stay Wet palette, and that is very helpful if you're using regular gouache. Uh, Milo says, "It's true and gross. The white and sky blue has was lost to mold." Oh no. Apparently there's some stuff you can put in it that are that reduce the mold or prevent it from, growing, but yeah, it's tricky because um what's it called? You can't put too much of it and it can affect the paint and it gets tricky apparently. But yeah, if you're not familiar with the Stay Wet palette, um, it's a palette that so there's a few different versions of it, but for gouache and acrylic, it's a plastic palette that has a lid that seals tight. But in addition to that, it has a sponge layer that's thin, and you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can not saturate the sponge, but I guess wet the sponge, and then you put a special palette paper over the sponge, and the palette paper has very small holes in it to let some of the moisture from the sponge out into the paint from underneath, so it keeps it fresh in theory. I should rephrase that. It's not in theory. It does. I've used it. It works. Um, so yeah. Milo says, in the last stream of your cat paintings, you were using a additive on your oils. Are you still doing that in this painting? No, I am not. I am using some additives, but not that one. That one was uh, Galkid. Galkid is I specifically use it, or it's specifically used to speed up the drying. Um, Now that this doesn't have a deadline, I don't need to speed up the drawing. In fact, the drawing time. In fact, I'm more likely to want to slow the drawing time than speed it up, honestly. Because even though I can paint wet over dry, ideally I would prefer to paint wet into wet um, for most of the painting process. So this is actually the fact that it's a dry painting is actually, and I'm painting over that is actually not my favorite. So, yeah, I'm more likely to try and slow the drawing time than speed it up, generally speaking. Within reason, of course. I'm never trying to slow it down to, months. I'm just trying to, just saying, like, I'd rather it not, you know, dry by tomorrow kind of thing, which it usually doesn't. But the other additive, that's what it does. Tries to like dry it very fast. The additives I'm using right now, I'm using it's a gel medium. You can see it right here. That's just to help the paint kind of move a little bit better because it is going on dry stuff instead of it being wet. So if the paint needs any anything to help it, and the thing is because it's a gel, it has just a little bit more volume to it versus using just oil, which is a lot thinner. So it makes it easier to kind of cover and paint over the existing paint. But it's not a big difference because even though it's a gel that turns, um, there's a name for it, where it's more solid until you start mixing it, and then it becomes more, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, More fluid. But yeah, let me. I got a message real quick. Um, Hold on. Um, just checking. One of my neighbors is gonna stop by for something. I was just double checking. They just messaged me about that. We'll see when they're coming by. But yeah. But yeah, if you ever have questions about paint or the paints I'm using, you're more than welcome to ask. Uh, I don't mind talking about that stuff at all. Alrighty. Having said that, getting we're pretty much at the end of my time today. Uh, I would like to keep going, but I have a another commission that has a tight deadline on it that I have to work on. That's not an oil painting, and I can't do it on stream. So, yeah, 2 hours is probably about my limit for the day. Oh well. Like I said, I'm gonna try and keep my schedule, so I will be streaming on Sunday as well. Um, we'll see how things pan out with my schedule and everything. Oh, Milo, thank you so much. I'm really glad you like my work, and I really like your work too. For anyone who doesn't know, Milo does some really great artwork on his YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking him out. Um, yeah, let me see how easy it is. Um, okay, go to channel. Here we go. Yeah, for anyone who's interested, here's his channel. You can check him out, and anyone watching the VOD will be able to, if they anyone watching the VOD should also be able to see the link. So, yeah, there. At least I like shouting out people. So Don Lee says, "Still here, just lurking." Sorry, Don Lee. I'm going to end the stream now. But thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate it, and thanks for uh, you know hanging out, and for the lurkers as well. Thank you. I appreciate you. Um, Des, thank you for helping. Des, the moderator, and Donley also moderating. Thank you both for your help. I appreciate it. Um, I'm not big enough to require moderators. They're just nice enough to help me because half the time I get, overwhelmed with the technical stuff or not paying attention when, I get spam or whatever it is. So thank you all for helping. Appreciate it. Have a good night. I'll be back on Sunday. Yeah, that's all I got. Have a good one, everybody. Oh, check out my commission page. I did, what's it called? Pin the link. So yeah, check out my commission page. That's it.